Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about the 1985 cult classic movie Clue. And yes, the movie Clue is based off of the board game. It's basically a movie experience of it. There are several characters, Mr. Green, Mrs. Peacock, Miss White. They all come to a big mansion. They come across different weapons, a candlestick, a lead pipe, a revolver, and throughout the movie, various people end up dead. You're not sure who did it, but with the help of the butler, played by Tim Curry, you come to the resolution. The first thing to note about this movie is that actually when it came out, it was considered a box office bust. It wasn't really received well by critics, but today people do love it. And I'm going to go over a few reasons why. The first is it's got an amazing cast. As I mentioned, Tim Curry is in it. Madeline Kahn, who you probably know from some of Mel Brooks movies, is in it. Who else is in it? Michael McKean, Christopher Lloyd, both legends. Even Jane Wiedlin, who you won't know the name, but she was actually one of the founders of the Go-Go's, the rock band. She's in it. So it's got a great cast, and they all play together pretty well. One of the more artistic elements of the movie is that in theaters, it actually had 3 or I can't remember 4 alternative endings. I think it was 3 alternative endings. And you didn't know which ending you were going to get, right? So in one ending, it was, Miss White who did it with the revolver in the observatory. And in another movie, it would have been a completely different person and character. And of course, they had to make it plausible. And so along the way, there's clues that hint and indicate each of them. And so the idea, of course, was they wanted to get moviegoers to go a second or a third time. That didn't really happen. When it was finally aired for TV and later now for streaming, of course, they just sort of put all of the endings back to back to back with like a little, text on screen. That's how it could have happened, but there's also this. But it makes for a lot of fun. The other thing that really makes this movie stand out is the timing. The timing and the pacing of the movie is fantastic. An example of this, in the movie, there are 2, maybe 3 different references to when the police are going to show up at the mansion. At one time, they say the police are going to be here in 38 minutes, and another one, the police are going to be here in 20 minutes. And of course, that timing does indeed match to when the police come, and when the police come is when you finally, get the final ending of who did it and where and why. The pacing is great because it's a constant crescendo led by Tim Curry. He is just fantastic. He does a lot of Tim Curryisms in this movie, but he plays the butler, and spoiler alert, he also turns out was not really the butler. He was Mr. Body, the person who had brought everybody together to blackmail them. But, he starts getting more and more energetic, not frantic, but, he's leading this detective-esque search, and the final crescendo comes to a point where he's like, I've solved it. Let's run through all the events of the night. And then he leads everybody from room to room, going over everything that you just saw. And it's very frantic and frenetic. And again, just a lot of fun. One of the downsides to the movie is for a lot of it, the comedy is really an ensemble. There's a lot of moments where, Tim Curry says something and then the entire cast in unison responds with no, or go on with it, or, ah. And so it almost feels like it was made to be a live theater, right, as opposed to a movie. And actually, it definitely could have been a play or maybe even a musical, but nah, it's better as a play. And yes, so it's like, if you're looking for a movie where, with great CGI, adventure and things like that, this is not it. I mean, this really could be a play at your local playhouse, but there's charm to that as well. So, some critics leveled that even when it came out, and I say pahooey to that. Pahooey, if that's a word. I watched this with my kid. There are some, sexual overtones. There's a few of them, I think there's 1 or 2 moments of what I'd call groping. Like a guy just reaches out and tries to grab a girl on the behind. I think that happens once, maybe twice. But Other than that, the sexual stuff isn't too bad. There's one pretend makeout scene because they're trying to hide a dead body, so it's actually comical. Overall, I liked it watching it again all these years later. My son liked it, seeing it for the first time after playing the board game Clue. I was like, hey, do you want to see this movie? And he was all about it. And that might actually be a way to make this like a fun family experience. Is play the board game, then watch the movie. It'll make the board game that much funner. So there you go. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.